Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us here for the Learning People webinar on project management today. Delighted to say that we do have one of our students joining us as well, which I find always adds an extra dimension to the topics we discuss. After all, like I said, myself and a couple of other people on this webinar have got a huge amount of experience in discussing project management careers, but fundamentally, we know what our audience wants. They want to see an example of how all the advice we've given, how all the hard work that goes into it can come to fruition at the end. So I think that makes the perfect place to start, and then I'll introduce everyone else that's on this webinar. But welcome to Megan. Hello, Megan. How are you?
Hi there. I'm very well, thank you. How are you, Matt?
I'm very well, thank you. Thank you for joining us today. Megan will be answering some of your questions, giving some really useful insights into her background and her success since she's become a Learning People student as well. We're also joined by Charlie. Charlie's one of our consultants here on the project management team, and we're also joined by Alex, who's also been with us. And you may have recognised Alex on some previous webinars. Charlie, I think this is the first one you've joined us for as well, is it not? Is that the case?
Yeah, first time. Yeah, good to get started with it.
Good on you. Like I said, we've had some really useful questions come in today. So what we'll do is I'll introduce myself as host of this as well, and introduce hopefully someone that's going to be joining us in the next couple of minutes once the technical issues have been resolved. But and then Megan will get straight into the questions for yourself as well.
Sure.
Briefly, my name's Matt. I've got the privilege of actually heading up our project management enrolment team here at the Learning People. I've been with the company now, it'll be 10 years this summer, and I think one thing I always typically say at the start of this webinar is the changing landscape that I've seen over that period of time has been huge, from recessions, cost of living crisis, and the pandemic. The one thing that's always remained consistent and true throughout that is the power of certification and the difference it can make to safeguarding you against those variances and disruptions in the world that we face, but also the growth of project management. I think in the time that I've gone from joining the company to where we are today, one thing's never changed. Project management has never dropped out the top 2 or 3 most in-demand professions, particularly in the UK job market, but further above and beyond that as well. And a lot of the reasons for that are just the fact that it's one of the best, most rewarding careers you can have, but it's also non-industry and non-sector specific. So it's fundamentally recession-proof and industry-proof as well. So hopefully you gain some useful insights. Megan, first and foremost, for yourself, you enrolled with us back in November 2021, I believe. Is that correct?
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Fantastic. And your careers consultant was Jenny,
Yes.
who's probably one of the few people that's been at the organisation longer than I have. So you obviously we're in very safe hands there in terms of the advice you were given. Mm-hmm. Going back to that initial conversation, can you think about how that conversation went? What was your main motivation for even getting in touch with us?
Great question. So I was thinking about going into project management for a while, and a progression came up within my company, an internal sort of application with a need for a project management qualification. And it just felt like it was the right time, right timing. I had actually been speaking to Jenny about project management and was kind of on the fence for a little bit of time. But as you know, Jenny's so helpful, and every step of the way was giving me advice on trying to make things tailored to my specific needs and things like that. I then enrolled, as you say, in November, and within 2 weeks got the role that I had applied for internally. And it was predominantly because I had quickly got my qualification in APM PFQ, and now have my Prince 2, just about to do my practitioner and agile practitioner as well. And actually, I haven't said anything to Jenny yet, but just been appointed a business manager. So I actually have applied for another role using my project management skills and the qualifications as well. So I've kind of doubled my career path in the space of however long using the Learning People. So yeah.
Breaking news to give to Jenny then.
Yeah.
She'll be receiving that email.
That's it.
First of all, congratulations, obviously.
Thank you.
That's amazing. I wasn't even aware of that when I was looking through all the route and progression you've done. So that's absolutely remarkable. That's brilliant. It's interesting you said there about like having an individual conversation and Jenny being quite thorough and getting involved. I mean, put it into context, Jenny's probably enrolled, rough maths, I was just working it out there, probably about 2,000 students that she's helped kickstart careers in project management, which is something I know she's incredibly proud of. But it goes back to that actually having a tailored career path, isn't it? Like someone like yourself that was uncertain about where you wanted to go. What was there anything specifically that Jenny did, or a particular sort of bit of advice that she gave you, or was it just the fact that she took such a heightened interest in you specifically in your journey, would you say?
I think it's a mixture of everything, really. You know, when we had that initial consultation or conversation over the phone, it was really, she really got to know me, what I wanted from a career standpoint. At the time, I was very much at a crossroads. So for context, my background's in sports therapy. It's got nothing to do with project management. And then was appointed into a senior management role, hence the reason for the project management. But just Jenny got the understanding of what it was that I needed and the tailoring that I needed, I suppose, specifically to the industry that I'm in. I went full force and did the whole bundle, because I think she just gave me the opportunity, or gave me the insight that what project management can actually do for you within a career setting. One of the biggest things that I was surprised by, and it's probably obvious to a lot of other people, but you don't have to go down project management in order to need a project management qualification. And so that really opened up my eyes when I was like, oh, I can stay within the healthcare industry, but also have project management within that scope. And it just gives you such a range of skills. And it's really grown my confidence as well in terms of how I deal with day-to-day clinical operations and everything else as well. So yeah, it's been really beneficial.
I think you touched on 2 or 3 things that is integral to what we try to portray to prospective students or people that are coming to us, right? That I think it's something remarkable that only 40 to 45% of our students do project roles, as in they're called project manager, project coordinator, junior project, program director, anything like that. It just shows that the majority of our students do project work. You know, ops managers, you know, marketing managers, like what you were just saying yourself there. And it's something that we try to portray to our students when they sit there and go, oh, I've decided I'm actually not going to go for a project management role. Okay, so what are you going to do? Oh, I'm going to do this. All right, think about the job description. What skills do you need, like planning, initiating, risk management, managing budgets, timescales, etc. Last time I checked, that is involved in the vast majority of all of our jobs, right?
Yes,
so
yeah.
I have to pause just briefly. Hello, Robin. You've overcome some serious technical issues to join us.
I finally got here. Technology hates me. I don't think it's actually Zoom's fault. I think it's me.
And we work in tech careers, and we're not even immune to these sort of little disruptions. So thanks for joining us, Robin. I'm sure you'll give some useful insights as well as always on this.
Absolute pleasure. No problem.
Megan, once you enrolled, you met Anna Lane in student care, who took you through the learning platform. We were given an orientation. It's something that we speak to a lot of prospective students about, is that orientation process and helping getting you started. Can you think back to that and how useful that was and what that entailed?
Well, purely, again, as I said, I had purchased the bundle, and it's just having an understanding of her recommendation on which qualification to go for first, as simple as it sounds, which one to study first. She went through the entire process, how the learning works, what resources you have within the software, as well as all the practical exams, and you know, being able to use the software platform to the best of its ability, really. And then went through the actual exam process and how that looks as well. So a full-blown rundown of how the actual course would benefit myself. So yeah, hugely useful.
I think it's one of those things that the training platform is insightful, and it does have everything you need. But it's a cheesy example, but I used to say to some of my students, it's like, if you were just dropped in the city centre of Barcelona, I'm sure you'd have a great time. But if you got some useful tips and advice about the best bits to go and see and when to see them, how to see them, you probably have an even better time, and thank that person for the advice. And I think student care are there for a whole host of reasons, but that orientation has kickstarted many a career path. And when people look back on it, go, actually, that was a really, really useful step. That said, training isn't always sunshine and rainbows, is it? You know, there's always going to be bumps along the way. Can you think of any particular bits that you struggled with or needed help and direction with at all?
I can. So as I said, it took me 2 weeks to study and pass the APM, PFQ. it then took me a further 6 months to do my Prince 2. And it was a number of being in a new role, you know, actually finding the time outside of work and family life and everything else as well to be able to sit down and actually study and get the work done. But again, had that call with student care. And I think, I can't remember how often it is, but there's always the opportunity to have that 15-minute catch-up call with student care about, you know, anything, any problems you've got, you know, to lean on them really. And the general conversation was just keep going. And as simple as that sounds, it's just that re-motivation and giving you sort of the discipline that you need. So my hardest part was just getting the opportunity to sit down and hash out how the sort of Prince 2 learnings will look. But one of the, when I did speak to student care, it was that gentle reminder that it's not just the videos, you know, the educational videos to look at. Remember, there's however many obscene amounts of resource within the manual as well, the practical exams and everything else, and general advice on how to study effectively. Again, as simple as it sounds, was really useful too. So,
well, everyone's studies journey is different. You know, I think that we've got, you know, quite a few people on this webinar now, and I think everyone will be from completely different backgrounds, and their situation is different. Some people will have been in jobs for 15 years. Some people will have families, some people will have new families and been in a job for 15 days. You know, everyone's circumstance is different, and therefore the support that you need and receive, the motivation, having somebody to check in with, you know, you do have multiple points of contact, and that's because it is different for everybody. You know, we have a team of people that check in various months along your training license. You've got student care to help with technical issues as well as motivation. You can always go back to your original consultant as well, and just sort of reach out to them. You've got career services obviously as well. But on the whole, how would you, I don't know, not assess is the wrong word, like, how have you found the level of support from us as learning people? Because I think that's a question a lot of people would have. And you said that you received it, but was it always what you needed? And when you wanted it, did you always find it available when you needed it?
Always, 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 always. There was never a point where I would email or try and phone and it would take days or weeks to get back to me. There was always somebody there to help me. And if it wasn't that person that I'd phoned, say, for example, if I'd phoned Jenny for some advice, she would always signpost me to the correct person if it wasn't her that could answer the question for me. So the support's amazing. It always has been. I was actually talking to my husband about it and saying it's actually better than the university support. You know, and that goes a long way to say something like that. So yeah, company is very supportive.
It really, really does. I think that I don't know, that I've always found that academic education is fantastic. Classroom education is what we're brought up on, right? You know, everybody is almost institutionalized through educational institutions to say that I learn best when I'm in a classroom. But when you reach adult life, that's not really applicable for 95% of us. You have to have something that fits in around your lifestyle rather than your lifestyle is determined by when you're learning. So for you to say that, you know, you were able to receive that support to a level that you feel is superior to that's actually means quite a lot to us in the team, and I'll be sure to pass that on, that's for sure. You mentioned there about getting advice about which course to start with, and I think this is something that a lot of people out there are interested in, because some of the courses deal more on actual ways of planning projects. Like Prince 2 is a very well-known structured methodology, right? It's a planning tool that helps that, whereas something like the APM course can actually help really educate you about the wider world of project management, like the day-to-day human aspects. Did you think that starting with the APM course and passing it actually helped you with your Prince 2 education?
Definitely, with the scope, you know, in terms of the knowledge that I needed at the time, most definitely. I'm glad that I did Prince 2 next and then Agile after, purely because that's the methodology that my company currently use. I don't know whether this is the right thing to say, but I'm assuming it depends on the company as to, you know, what methodology you'd apply and maybe study for first. But again, they all fit into each other. I preferred to do APM, and I would do it again if I did it that way. APM first and then Prince 2, purely because, as you say, it gives you that umbrella scope of an understanding of project management as a whole, and then you can almost diversify and go a little bit more niche, whether it's Prince 2 or Agile after.
Absolutely, and I'm sure this question has come in when we go through the Q&A that was submitted by our guests today, and so the people that are viewing this webinar. We always get asked about what qualification's right for you, what order should I do it. I'm just going to cover that off straight away, as Megan's saying, right? And I said Jenny's had nearly 2,000 students since she's been with us. Everyone's journey is different. And it will depend on the company you work for, the industry you're in, where you're at with your career, your confidence level in where you're at with, is this a completely new skill versus been in the industry for 20, 25 years? There is so many different variables about what order and what course. So have a consultation with the team, and they would be the ones that are the perfect position to get to know you. Megan, final question for now, and it's a really simple one, but what would you say to anybody that's on this webinar that is thinking about studying with the Learning People?
I think I've answered most of it, in the sense that I think it's a fantastic company. I really do. You know, if I did have a barrier, every barrier was kind of knocked down at some point, whether it was because I was struggling with studying, there was always options. You know, I didn't even mention the fact that you have, is it fortnightly study seminars or webinars, so you can go into those and chime in and get some support and help there as well. And I did use those on a very regular basis. So for those that want that sort of active learning with somebody there doing sort of webinars in a live context, is that as well. I wouldn't hesitate. I would do it again. I think, as you suggested, project management applies everywhere. It applies to every single industry, and it's adaptable in every single career path. And as I said, it's progressed me twice in the space of 18 months, and I don't think I could have done that without PM. So thank you for your help.
No, well, thank you for sharing your story. I think it's like I said, right at the start of this, I said, didn't I, that people like myself, Alex, Charlie and Robin can talk about what we do at the Learning People all day long, but hearing it from somebody that's actually invested themselves, paid their own money into courses and actually gone out there and been hugely successful, that's what people want to hear about. So thank you. Robin, hello. Usually I'd introduce Robin right at the start, but Robin is one of the fantastic people that head up our amazing career services team. But do you want to talk briefly about the services that you offer and how you've helped students like Megan yourself?
Absolutely, and thank you for allowing me back in. So yeah, I lead the career services function at Learning People. I actually work from the Dublin office, one of our second homes. And what we do, our main aim as career services, is supporting students, regardless of their background, in helping them become job ready, navigating the job market, and navigating a career change if that's applicable. So we have a watertight 3-phase process that we guide students through. Phase 1 is all about that job ready piece, okay? Helping you present yourself as a credible candidate for the marketplace in line with what role you're aiming for. Because like we said, everybody's going to be different based off your background, based off what you're aiming for, what level, whether you're totally new to project management or it's something you've been doing for years, but you've needed the certifications to bolster your employability. We tailor that to the student. So phase 1 is getting you ready for the market, where we focus on things like CV, LinkedIn, cover letter preparation. We go back and forth until you are at the market standard. Neither myself nor anybody in the team will allow you go to market with a subpar CV or LinkedIn profile. Then in phase 2, it's all about navigating the job market, and it's where you're becoming active. There are 2 core areas that we focus on here. So there's networking and striking a balance with your job applications. Networking is absolutely paramount. It's really important to get yourself embedded into the area with contacts and people in the industry of the area that you're trying to move into. It's also the one way to uncover what's called the hidden job market. Some of you here will be aware, but only 30% of available opportunities are actually advertised online. So if you're on your own with your job search, just focusing on what's on the internet, it's statistically going to take you longer, unfortunately. So that brings me to my second point about phase 2. To counteract that, with students, we help you guys to structure a targeted plan that balances multiple methods of application. And that just naturally gives you a better probability of getting responses. We know that that's sort of half the battle in a job search as well. And that plan will be tailored specifically to you and what you're aiming for and how you're progressing as well. Phase 3 is our final phase, and it's fully focused on interviews and helping you land and embed into that job. So we do very intensive interview prep calls, mock interviews, presentation practice, and we'll also provide support in things like salary negotiation and in the job offer process. So those are those general phases. Overall, you'll work one-to-one with a consultant like myself throughout your entire journey. And our role is to provide tailored and impartial support on anything that comes under careers and career support. And we support you fully until you land that role. There's no time limit on that support.
I think that's the thing there as well, isn't it, Robin? You said there's no time limit. Once you are enrolled as a student with us at the Learning People, we will support you with that aspect of it for as long as you need us to. It's not defined by your training license. You come back to us in 2 or 3 years' time and say, hey, I was a student with yours and I want some career advice and support. You'll get it. You just will. You know, we don't believe in putting up barriers to our education here or the career services support. There are other training providers out there. Shock news story, right? We're not the only people in the business. Some of them have job guarantees. Some of them make high promises, and they're entitled to do that, right? But we don't believe in putting up a list of terms and conditions and barriers to those which making you jump through even more hoops. You know, taking the step to progress your career is big enough without you then having to tick off a various like list of terms and conditions. We want this to be access all areas to all of our students, regardless whether they pass their exams within a month or whether it takes them slightly longer or whatever it may be. And to round off what Robin was just saying, their way of going about things is so successful. We do not need a job guarantee. We have a 97% success rate, and 97% of people that complete the process that Robin has just been talking about are now in a new role. And that is remarkable within their desired field. Sorry, they haven't just gone and got a new job. That is within their desired field. So 97% of people are now in a new job within their desired profession. And I think that is remarkable. So thank you, Robin, for going through that as well. We have had some brilliant questions come in from people that submitted their details. There's one that I do want to actually just stress that's come up in the webinar chat here from Yasser Thomas. And says, I prefer face-to-face learning. I can't motivate online learning. Look, I'm going to be honest, that is absolutely right. For some people, it doesn't work, no matter what the desire, what the motivation is. All I will say is that, like anything, support, it differs depending on the company. You know, it may not be for you. You may already be sitting there thinking, I've tried this and it doesn't work. And it may be the case. I'm not going to lie to that. But the support that we offer does everything it can to stop that from happening, you know, right the way from that orientation process, right the way through to the check-in calls, the accessibility of the various support networks and teams that you have here. The fact that it is self-paced and not necessarily deadline-based training makes a huge difference as well. If you're having if unfortunately you're unwell or something happens up in your personal life, or you're just suffering from a lack of motivation for a bit, you can park the training for a bit and come back to it when you are, and then we encourage you to really sprint forward and do it. So all I'd encourage you to do, if you are considering training but that is your concern, please speak to your consultant if you're already within that process of having a consultation. But if not, give us a call and speak to one of the team and they'll explain for in a bespoke way how that would work for you. Okay. A question that's actually come in, Charlie, I'm going to ask you this one. Having worked alongside you for quite some time, I think you're almost the perfect person to ask this question. It says, how does project management certification compare to having on-the-job experience? What would be your answer to that, Charlie?
I think the importance behind the qualification is the evidence that you know how to do it, but also the confidence you have within yourself. I think Megan touched upon it as well. Whenever you're starting a new career path, it's really important that if this is for enjoyment purposes, without the confidence to do it and the validation behind having a qualification, that can become daunting itself. So I think experience is great if you're lucky enough to have built it up over time. But I think when you look at an employer's perspective, to look at you as a candidate and see it in black and white, that you know how to do this, you've studied it, it creates a trust in you as a candidate as well.
With that, with what Charlie's just touched on there, Megan, when you were speaking earlier, it was brilliant. I was just thinking about some of the people that I speak to, and confidence is always a big thing that people are worried about. How did you find that transition from your role in sports therapy to doing the training and actually doing it in real life? How was that for you adjusting to that new role?
Wow, much easier when I knew about the sort of ins and outs of project management. I think the biggest thing that was I suppose like a little bit of an uphill battle was just the simple terminology, and just knowing straight off the bat that, as simple as it sounds, I knew what BAU meant. I had no idea what it meant before. You know, I come from a clinical background, and as simple as that is, it was like, oh, I know that, I'm good now, you know. And working alongside a project team as well, and working with a project manager, although my job title at the moment is senior wellbeing physiologist, I'm still very much in the project field, but she's, you know, full-blown project manager, and actually sometimes my knowledge exceeded hers to an extent, but just because of the way that the program and qualifications are set out, it just gave me that, again, as you say, the confidence, but also just the background knowledge generally of how a project works. So although I don't have the first-hand experience of being in a project world, or didn't then, I had the knowledge in the background. So hopefully that helps answer the question.
It does, and I don't think it's if you look at those questions and answers back to back, the one word that seep through is confidence. I often speak about the Sunday night, as I call it. Like, let's say you've been at home, it's a Sunday night, and you finish your roast dinner, and you go about your job search, you know, and you're sitting there with a cup of tea or a glass of wine, and you go, right, I need to look at this job. Having the confidence to read a job description and go, I can do that, is massive. Having the confidence to then actually apply for the job and sit in an interview room and look around the candidates sometimes. It's funny, I know it's changed, and Robin was sitting there, jobs interviews have changed. It's not necessarily like that image that we have from TV shows back in the day or whatever, but you have to think that's the perception a lot of people still have. Having the confidence to sit there and go, when I get asked a question about what I would do in XYZ situation, that can sometimes be the hidden gem of your education and the certification that you didn't know you were missing. Having the confidence to look someone in the eye and answer a question and use terminology, that's massive. That is so powerful. And yeah, you're right. I think across the board there, it makes a huge difference.
If I could just add one more thing as well, sorry, Matt, just again, with the recent interviews that I've done in regards to sort of project management, one of the biggest things that the feedback to me is, it's so comforting to see that qualification on your LinkedIn headline. And it's just the knowledge, again, it's the stamp of approval almost, isn't it? Because it gives them that insight, you know that, you know your stuff. And although I think one of the chat questions is, you know, most recruiters are looking for experience in CVs, but there's so many transferable skills. And once I got my head around actually how much, if I looked at my CV when I was a sports therapist, and going into sort of a project management setting and thinking, well, actually 9 times out of 10, I do have those skills. They just sound different, or they're worded differently. So yeah, that helps.
Robin is nodding so much. I think she has something to say on this.
It's because Robin helped me with my LinkedIn profile. That's why.
What the certification gives you all, like majority of people, like I have a recruitment background, I have project experience, right? Recruitment is projects if you illustrate it through the lens of the project life cycle, which is what the certifications allow you to do, then you are going to ring through to what those recruiters need, because you're speaking the language that their clients have told them that they want, right? So what the certifications allows you to do is to present yourself as a project professional, rather than expecting the market to read between the lines for you. We all know how competitive the job market is. They're not going to read between the lines for you. So the certification is going to massively help you jump ahead of the queue. And you've illustrated it perfectly there, Megan, because you wouldn't have initially thought it was project experience, but it absolutely is.
Yeah, and there's also the fundamental thing that I don't know if anyone here has got experience of writing a job description. You know, I've recruited quite a few people for learning people over the years. I've done it in hospitality in the past. The first thing that you put down or you have in your head is this profile of the person you want. And a couple of questions have come in beforehand on here about people wanting experience versus the education. I don't think anybody has ever put a job advert out there that says no experience necessary for a project management based role. Why would you do that? Of course, that's what you're going to look for. But as competitive a job market it is also a candidate-led market. And you have to have differential factors out there. And it's like Charlie was saying about how, validating your experience is as important as actually having it, and I think Alex, if I was to say to you, what percentage of people you speak to are experienced project managers versus people who have none, what would you say the answer would be?
25% experience, probably.
Really? That low?
Or 30.
Okay,
Maybe
interesting.
more,
But again,
it's a
I
large
think,
chunk of career changes, yeah.
but I think that's it, isn't it, Alex? You love speaking to career changers, so they're the ones that you really sort of enjoy speaking to. If I was to say someone like someone else on the team, they may actually say that 60-70% of the people they speak to are experienced. I think generally the shift over the 10 years that I've been here, it would be maybe it's gone to a 50-50. And it's because gone are the days where, and rightfully so, gone are the days on the whole where people got jobs based off, oh, my mate Dave from down the road, he's brilliant, he's sound, I'll give him the job, he can run that multi-million-pound project. There is so much more red tape and sort of accountability to the hiring process these days that you have to validate your experience. And so many people come to us that have got 20-25 years experience of being a project manager, and they are unable to make a transition or get a job in the job market. And firstly, that is because they don't understand the modern job market because they haven't needed to for a long time. And that's where Robin and her team come in. But also people want to see that evidence, that proof. And it's the oldest example I've ever given. But if you went up to hire a car tomorrow and said, I want to borrow that BMW that's in the forecast for 5 days, can I have it? They're going to ask for your driving license. Oh, no, I don't have a driving license, but I tell you, I've been driving for 10 years. Oh, go on, here's the keys. They're not going to do that. You know, and it's the same thing. Why would somebody entrust you with a project that's £50,000 or £50 million without having something there that backs it up in addition to your CV? And there are so many job adverts out there, probably 70-80% that don't mention certifications. That's probably the reality. They don't. They are talking about the skill set and what you can learn. But when the push comes to shove and you're coming down to the final handful of candidates, the people with the certification come with a little bit more security in giving you that job. Would you agree there, Robin, or not? Or have I just spoken nonsense?
No, absolutely. Absolutely. Because I've seen it with people that try and do interviews before they've done their first certification. They might get to the point of the interview, but they could so easily trip over their words. The context is lost. You'd lose that sharpness, like Megan was saying, even just small little tidbits of like language and things like that that you'd be able to use that would help set you apart and even just help you identify what you need to do in that scenario just a lot clearer. It's clarity and confidence that it gives you. And they're just so much worthwhile. So much better to have them than to not have them, even if you have the exact same experience. Your experience won't change, but how you can illustrate it and how you can deliver it will change, and that will have an impact.
And we've not even spoken about the salary impact. You know, some of people on this course will actually, on this call, will actually be eligible for the PMP or may even already have the PMP. The thing that blows my mind about that qualification is you can have two people in a room that have got 20 years experience. The person with the PMP on average will earn 20% more as a result of having the PMP. And 80% of people that do the PMP see a pay increase within 12 months of doing the qualification. So the benefits are huge. And Charlie, I've got a question for you here. It's a good one, actually. Is it worth getting a project management certification, even if you're not currently working as a project manager?
Yeah, definitely. I think what's important is you need to take a step back and look at what you want from your career. And if you see yourself inclined to want to go in that direction, look at what you can gain from it. Look at the doors these qualifications open. We touched upon it. It doesn't have to be as specific as project management. There's so many opportunities out there where the qualifications relate to the role itself. So when we go through the consultation, these are the types of things we're going to look for. We're going to see the direction you want to go through. And that's why we acquire the right qualification for you, given the pathway you want to take. But yeah, I say definitely the skills are so transferable. They're so relevant across so many different industries. Again, when you take a step back and look at it from an employer's perspective, why would they not be encouraged to look at a candidate with some fantastically recognized CV qualifications on their CV? It's only going to help you regardless of what direction you go with it.
Exactly. And as Tyler's just put in the webinar chat there as well, project management skills and fundamentals can be taken to any role in any place of work. Absolutely. Alex, one for you here. In terms of, are there any industries or sectors that particularly value project management certifications? And that's from Marshall. And I'll add to that, have you noticed any particular trends as well in industries that are growing in demanding project managers?
Yeah, so with industries, I mean, you just have to think what a project is. A project is, you know, it could be anything. It could be absolutely anything involved in any industry. So regardless of what your aspirations are, what sort of industries you want to go into, that there's a need for project managers. As Megan's alluded to today, they're not always the title of a project manager, but you'll need those skill sets. You'll need to be able to understand how to do the role. So yeah, in terms of trends of moving forward, construction's always a large one for us. I mean, it's typically the largest industry in the UK for project management. We're starting to see a lot of people look at areas in IT. IT is a massive one. You've got to look at any organisation. Us, for example, we have IT project managers. Every company uses IT systems. So there's a real need for that at the moment. And healthcare and just the wider public sector, I'm sure Charlie and Matt would agree with me. We're starting to see a lot of people have a desire to work in the public sector. There's a need for project managers. Naturally, when things are a little bit more difficult, project managers play such an important role. So yeah, probably say ones to look out for: IT or any sort of tech-based industry, and healthcare is definitely ones that we're seeing increase in demand.
Yeah, and I think that this sounds, I don't know, I've never felt comfortable how this comes across when I say this, so that's my disclaimer before if anybody takes this the wrong way, right? But the pandemic has had a huge impact on everything, but also our professional lives as well as our personal and our health lives. And the amount of people now that are transferring from one sector or industry into another has never been higher. That's another consistent thing in the 10 years I've been doing this, right? People can have a sports science background and transfer that into a project management career. You know, people that were in retail, for example, or the travel and hospitality industry, recognize those transferable skills and moved into another area, and they use the certifications to help them do that as well. So yeah, this is another thing. If you're sitting there on this call and you're uncertain about whether or not to do a course because you don't know what industry to go into, great. Absolutely brilliant, right? You know, you've got plenty of time to decide what industry and sector you want to go on. It's about the job and how you fit into a company. You know, some of the most exciting students we've had are people that worked originally in the postal service and then went to work in pharmaceuticals. They knew nothing really about pharma. They probably knew nothing about how to deliver a letter. It doesn't matter. It's about the project, about how you get something from conception through to end goal. And those are the transferable skills we keep talking about.
And with that as well, just to sort of extend on that, if you're someone who's at the start of looking at project management, the sort of really early stages, and you're looking at the industries, don't be overwhelmed by it. You know, if you're not certain on one industry or certain that you want to work in construction, you don't have to pigeonhole yourself. You're developing skill sets that are needed everywhere. So I think Alexandra, my student, is a great example of that. She came from a background of sales, and then she ended up working for Asda's business transformation team, and she would have never have suggested that's a place she'd like to work. But yeah, you'll be surprised what doors open when you get the certifications. Absolutely.
There's a couple of other questions. I am conscious of time as well, guys, so I'm going to try and wrap this up in the next 5 minutes or so. And thank you for everyone that's still online. The one thing, the question that's come in here is now, but what is more widely known now, Prince 2 or managing successful programs? That's a really interesting question, actually, because it isn't always about the popularity of a methodology. Sometimes it is actually, again, about suitability to where you're going. If you're looking at Prince 2 and MSP, there's a difference here, right? Project management is when you manage a project in isolation. Program management is when you're of a level where you are responsible for managing many projects at many given times, hence why you're given the program manager title. So if you are considering those two, they can work in cooperation, so to speak, conjunction with each other, but it might be worth having a wider conversation about PMP, MSP, PMQ, so many acronyms that I'm probably bamboozling half of you on this call, but it's please speak to your consultant regarding that as well. Megan, in terms of where you're at, this is maybe putting you on the spot here with this question, but what's the future hold for Megan Cole when it comes to project management and certifications?
Good question. Great question. And it does put me on the spot. I don't know, but in a good way, because, and so the role that I'm just about to go into, as I alluded to, is I was a sports therapist before, did my project management qualification, and now I'm going into project management in an engineering company. So it just goes to show that, again, you've got that qualification and you can take your skills from one totally different industry to another. And for that reason, I don't know what my career holds. I just want to go up as much as possible. But I like the idea that I don't have to choose an industry, as Alex suggests. You don't have to. You just pick what suits you. Find your
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's brilliant. But I made this is just dropped into my head here because I think a conversation I had with Jenny earlier is that you've also now you're doing soft skills training with us as well. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah. Why is that?
So I like to be all-rounded as a person, I suppose. And one of the things that I knew I needed to improve on was things like negotiation skills, presentation skills, things like that as well. And the soft skills are a fantastic way to do it. Again, that's a totally different software, isn't it? That's Precipio, if I pronounce that right.
Yeah, we have. That's a different platform. Yeah.
Yeah. And again, had Aaron from Student Care help me navigate that exceptionally well. So I'm now navigating my way through that as well. And I'm also doing ITIL as well, so that I've got that in my remit just to be able to add an IT element to my project management too.
Fantastic. And I think another thing that's changed over the years is actually people think that when they see a qualification and they see version 4, version 5, version 6, that they've just added something. No, something like particularly like PMI qualifications and APM go through big revisions because if a qualification represents that seal of approval that you're up to date with best modern practice, it needs to reflect the way that the industry and the market is going. And the recent revisions to things like the PMI PIMBOK, for example, reflect an inclusion of soft skills, and the way that we work is very, very different. And Robin, I think you've probably seen this, right? That the demand for soft skills like communication skills, negotiation, all of these sorts of things are higher than they ever have been. You can get bogged down in a methodology like Prince, but fundamentally, can you get in a room and talk to people and present with clarity? That's quite important.
It's paramount. It's absolutely paramount, because if you think about the role of a project manager, right? If you are that linchpin in the middle, a huge part of that is communication, right? You need to be able to communicate to different people. You need to be able to translate complex things and make them more simple. And the certifications allow you to do that, along with you'll bolster your own soft skills. But Megan, going that extra mile to really sharpen and round up your soft skills, that'll go such a long way.
Fantastic. Thanks, Robin. Just to round up a couple of questions we've had come in the chat with quite quick fire answers. You've been working in manufacturing industries for 20 years. Where do I fit in? Which qualification? Absolutely, you fit in. Age is no limit or barrier to project management. Doesn't matter whether you're 21 or 71. If you've got the ability to manage something which has a time frame, it's not like a company's looking at you and going, "Oh, how old are you?" They're not interested in that. They're interested in your skills. As for which qualification, speak to a consultant. It will determine where you're going. Other questions about what's the difference between PMP and PMQ? That's a really good question. A lot of that depends on where you work, how much experience you have, and where you want to work moving forward. One is an international standard, the other one is more predominantly for UK. But again, it depends on the project, the industry, and the sector you're going in. PMP will still trump, so to speak, PMQ in some industries and sectors. So again, please do speak to a consultant or phone in on our main line to speak to someone about that. Product, project, program. What have I got to do to progress more? There's a trend here. Speak to your consultant, because they're the ones that will really guide you on that journey. And it's not a cop-out answer. Everybody's journey is different, and absolutely 100% needs that respect of having individual tailored advice as well. There is quite a few others in here about switching from educational leadership and management to project management. Of course you can. Again, remember, only for those that weren't on the call at the start, only 40% or 45% of our students work in a role that has the word project in it. The rest is all about transferable skills. And Rohan, there, your story about the courses you're enrolling in not currently working for you. I'll reach out to you after this call and see what support we can do, because believe me, in 10 years of experience, it can often be just a case of redirecting you in a certain direction, and then you'll see so many, many more doors open. And it can be a frustrating experience being in the job market and feeling like what you've invested in isn't getting the results that you need. They will, with the right guidance as well, we will be able to get you there. Of that, I'm fully confident. So please don't be disheartened by where you're currently at. Thank you for everyone that's on this call. I've got one final question here. Alex, this one's for you. If there's anybody on this call that's got 50-50 doubts about whether project management's right for them or studying for the learning people's right for them, what would your advice be to them, Alex?
I think you'll see a theme here. Pick up the phone, give us a call, speak to a consultant, and we'll be able to give you some honest advice. We don't want just anyone to do the courses. We only want to do it if it's going to benefit you moving forward. So we'll have an honest conversation about what's right for you moving forward. And
there are many people that at the end of that consultation, we do give them that advice that, look, I don't think this is right for you. But for those that are, hey, 97% success rate. You know, Megan, you've been fantastic sharing your story today. So thank you so much for that. And you are exactly embody everything that we're about. You know, you've had a journey with us that hasn't even come to a conclusion, and your progression has been fantastic. So that's what it's about. So thank you, Megan. Thank you, Charlie, Alex and Robin as well, and everyone else that's joined on this webinar as well. Either get in contact with us or we will reach out to you in the next couple of days as well to have a conversation about your career.